Good morning, everybody. My name is Ali Board, and you are watching Technique Tuesday Takeover live on Facebook on the SAA's Facebook page. What is Technique Tuesday? Technique Tuesday is something that I do every week, or nearly every week, where I try to share a technique or some materials or just a thought about what it is that I'm currently working on. And at the moment, I am slap bang in the middle of what's called Dorset Art Weeks, where we throw the doors open of the studio to the general public. And what are we now? 3 days in, and it's going swimmingly, I have to say. All that hard work has paid off. Now, I know you might be watching on catch up, either via the SAA's Facebook page or possibly via my blog. No matter how it is that you're interacting with us this morning, you are very welcome. If you are watching live, don't forget that you can take part in the chat, and there's a lot to chat about this morning. So pop a little comment in there if you know how to do that, and I will try and give you a shout out, but as soon as I start painting, of course, it will be eyes down, and then I might miss some of your comments, but I promise I will go back through all of them, and any questions that crop up, I will try to answer them afterwards. So should we just give anybody a shout out who's in the room? Who gets the prize for the first comment of the day? Hillary does. Good morning, Hillary. Who else have we got? Anne, Patricia. Oh, Patricia's saying it's a grim day in Suffolk. I'm sorry to hear that, Patricia. Let me brighten up your day with some lovely bright orange Chinese lanterns for you. Joe is in the morning. Too early for me. Joe is in the room. Good morning. Julie, Martinez, looks like Martinez got her coffee on the go. Anita, the lovely Anita Pounder is in the room. Anita, thank you very much for tuning in this morning. You're very kind. Colleen is in the room and Pearl is in the room. Now, the other lady who is in the room this morning is Alison Debenham, and I'm pretty sure I know why she's tuned in today. That is because we are going to be talking about a painting that I have done called Ali's Garden. And you might have noticed in various bits and pieces that you've read about Ali's garden, Ali is spelled a little bit differently because it's not me. It's my lovely friend Ali D, who shared some of her Chinese lanterns with me, picked straight from her garden, and they were so inspirational that I've been painting Chinese lanterns ever since. So let's take you to that painting to show you what it is that I'm talking about. This is the painting that was inspired by those seed heads that Ali D gave me, and it is about as mixed media as it gets, all based on watercolor techniques. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a small little snapshot of that painting. Now, just in case you haven't been following along, what I have been trying to do is either write a blog or broadcast a vlog or do a live broadcast every single day before Dorset Art Weeks and during Dorset Art Weeks to kind of give you a bit of a flavour of what it takes to put on an event like this. But also, now that we're in the swing of the event, to really share some of the pieces from my collection. Yesterday, you may have seen a little short vlog that gave you a bit of a teaser about what it is that we're going to be talking about today. And there's lots of things coming up. This week, I'm going to be talking about my 405 Lexington Avenue painting. I'm going to be talking about my passion for painting dandelions, and I'm also going to be sharing with you the story behind my painting The Last of the Summer Sun. So you've got all that to come. But without further ado, today is a demonstration. Now, I know that some of you like to follow along. I would strongly recommend that you watch it first because I don't know what it is that I'm going to be doing. So how I can expect you to know what it is that I'm doing, I don't know. But I just want to say a few good mornings. Good morning to Pam. Helen, good morning. Linda, Rosemary, and Mal as well. Good morning. Oh, Mal's in Blackpool. Good morning. So shall we take you to the overhead camera and you can see exactly what it is that I'm going to be playing about with today, because I've got some rather interesting new things today. Now, this isn't necessarily for you to rush out and instantly buy these. This is simply because every now and again I treat myself to some new things, just to give my work a bit of injection, to understand products a little bit, and also so that you guys out there can see the products before you necessarily purchase them. And I've got two brand spanking new things that I've not played with before. This is the Hahnemuhl's bamboo mixed media paper. I promise you, please don't think that I tell fibs and that I've secretly had to go with this somewhere else. I really haven't. I've never used this paper before, so I don't actually know what it's going to produce for me. I do know that it's 90% bamboo fibre, 10% cotton rag, and what that means is that it's a very sustainable paper. I've been playing about with Hannah agave paper too, and so this one's a brand new one for me. It's going to be really interesting to see how it reacts to some of my techniques. Now, if you want links to any of these things, depending on how you're watching this broadcast, there should be some links that you can find either in the description of the broadcast or in a blog link that you can go and find these things direct on the SAA's page. Anne is saying, good morning from the A9. Oh, I know the A9 very well. That's Scotland. Anne, have a fabulous time. Now, I've got the bamboo paper that I'm going to play with. This is in a block form, so it's glued on almost four sides. It's got a little bit of a vent there. This is 24 by 32 centimetres, so it's sort of slightly bigger than A4. We'll see how we get on. Now, this is another thing that is brand spanking new, and I treated myself to. Some of you will know of my love for granulating colours. These are the Schminke Super Granulating colours. I did a review of them, sometime last year, can't remember when, that you might have seen me do. Now, this is a limited edition set, so this is called their Tundra set, and it has 5 colours in it: Tundra Orange, Tundra Rosa, Tundra Violet, Tundra Blue and Tundra Green there as well. So I've not tried these before either. Who knows how they're going to react? Who knows what it is that they're going to produce? But it's going to be a really interesting experiment. Now, there's already some comments coming in. Martina is saying, oh, I got that bamboo paper last week. I've not used it yet, so this will be interesting. Won't it be interesting, Martina? Not used it either, so this will be good. Lisa is saying it's a great paper. Dee, good morning, my lovely. And lots of people sharing the fact that they're interested in seeing this surface. What else have I got around me? You know me, I will explain things as I go, but I have got, so I've got my watercolours, I've got a bit of gouache over here, I've got some white and a few other colours just in case I might need them. I've got a little bit of brusho there, I've got my trusty Posca pens, and just lurking over here on the left hand side, I've got a little bit of bubble wrap. So I don't know whether I'm going to use all of these things. What I do like to do when I'm experimenting is have everything around me, because then I can just pick and mix my way through it. One thing I absolutely hate when I'm experimenting with something is having to go and find it. You kind of break your creativity. So what I've done is I've kind of pebble dashed my desk with all sorts of things so that as I'm experimenting, I'll have it to hand. And that might be a way that you like to work too. So here is that original selection of Chinese lanterns that Ali very kindly gave me. And I don't know if you've had a go at painting these before. They are the most intriguing structure. I'm not possibly going to worry about the leaves today, but I am going to look at just one of these in isolation, just so that you can see how I might attack one. I think attack is the word. And also so that you can see some of the materials at work. I'm not working from a photograph today. I am actually going to work from life. So the first thing I need to do is to do a spot of drawing. So let's fold this back. Now, just in case you've not used a block before, one of the joyful things about using a block is that it's glued down so that it doesn't necessarily need stretching, or it's not going to go anywhere. I've just noticed as well that it's open on 2 sides, which is really unusual. It's glued at the top and the bottom. That's very unusual. I don't know what effects that will have, but we will soon find out. And the next thing I most definitely need to do is apply the glasses, otherwise I'm never going to be able to see a thing. So let's have a look at these Chinese lanterns, shall we? You could pick one and really follow how to draw it. You could just do a general overview, which is what I'm going to do today. You've got a slightly different view of them to the one that I've got. You've got the camera pointing down that way. I'm looking a little bit more across at them, which is why my drawing might end up a little bit different. But let's give it a go, shall we? So let's get a few pencil lines in to show that overall shape. So let's start with that kind of inverted teardrop shape. Now you might notice straight away that I allow my pencil to skip on the surface. I like to do this, what I call Morse code method of drawing, this slightly dot dash, because it means I'm not really held to anything, and then I can change my mind. And let's face it, it's a good thing to be able to change our minds as we draw, isn't it? So I'm putting in the top of that Chinese lantern. Let's have a good look at it from my view. Kind of getting a 360 view of these shapes. They've got incredible kind of structural lines coming down. Let's put a sort of sense of that stem, which is wider at the bottom than it is at the top. It goes quite fine, so we'll get that in. Let's have a look at what's going on over here. So these lines radiate from the centre out. Let's get some of those in, and then it goes all a bit misshapen. Let's get those looking a little bit better. Now this is a sketch, this is an experiment, so I'm not worried about overdrawing. I don't want a clean, pristine, perfect line, because today is all about experimenting with those materials and getting them down on paper. Good morning, Barbara. So we'll get that line coming down there. We need to get one coming up and out and forward at us. So we'll get those lines, and then it comes to a rather interesting point. Now, we could leave it floating like that. We could kind of give it a sense of connection with the stem that it's on. Let's make some kind of random marks to show that it is part of a greater selection of things. I think that's fine for what it is that I need today. Now I could go back in with a putty eraser and do a little bit of editing if I wanted to, but for the most part I'm going to leave those pencil lines exactly as they are, because it means I can change my mind as I go. Dyra, good morning. So let's move that over to the side, and I'm going to try and keep my workspace really tidy today. First time for everything, isn't there? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring my palette into shot, and let's have a look at these watercolours. Yes, Anne, you're absolutely correct. It is very exciting to experiment, isn't it? So let's do a bit of unboxing. We'll take the lid off, and there you've got their 5 milliliter tubes. I'm interested in the Tundra Orange today and the Tundra Blue. Those are the two that I'm interested in. Why have I gone for those two? Now, if you saw the discussion that myself and the lovely Carol Kibble had last week all about colour, it was a webinar that we did for the SAA. I would try and find the link to the footage of that. If you were in on that discussion, we had a whole conversation about complementary pairings, and we were talking about blue and orange. If you haven't had a chance to see that yet, might be worth going back if you like colour and you want to learn a little bit more. I'm going to start off with that Tundra Blue. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of it out onto my palette. Brand spanking new tubes. So very exciting when that happens. I don't think I'm going to need an awful lot of it. Good morning, Linda. Linda's back from the school run. Oh, bless your heart. So I've got a little bit of that Tundra Blue squeezed out there. And what else am I going to need? I'm going to need a little bit of kitchen roll. Anne is saying that her workspace is always a bomb site. Yeah, mine is too. I'm only ever tidy, Anne, when I'm demonstrating, it has to be said. So I've got a bit of kitchen roll there. And I have my good old trusty workhorses, my SAA imitation sable brushes. This is a size 10. Good morning, Louise. And I'm going to be washing some background in. I've got my pot of water. It's a little bit out of shot for you, but I'm sure you can understand that I've got a lot of stuff here at the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a lovely wash. Ooh, isn't that a delicious colour? Look at that. Sort of similar to Prussian blue, but of course Prussian blue doesn't granulate. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this colour comes out. Right, we'll do a little bit of a vignette. So we'll do a little bit of soft edged, a bit of lost painting in the background, giving my brush a really good wash. Now don't forget, I've not used this paper before, so it's going to be a steep learning curve to see how it reacts with watercolour. It is designed for mixed media, so it should be absolutely fine and dandy. But of course, rather than being specifically a watercolour paper, we'll see how it fares. So lots of people saying that they like a new tube. Yes, it's like anything that's new, isn't it? It's just very exciting. So let's drop that blue on. We're going to do some negative painting. Well, that's reacting very beautifully, isn't it? Getting a nice soft edge going in on there. I don't want to do, we're not sort of doing entire painting here. We're just having an experiment today. So I don't necessarily need to worry too much about the kind of worrying about other colours being in the background. We'll just, we'll get on with it, shall we? And I'll do something that I like to do an awful lot, which is to encourage my colour to run down the page. Why do I like that? I think it gives it a bit of a sense of movement. And also, because this is a hanging item, I think it's nice to kind of show a bit of gravity. Now, while that's still wet, I'm going to drop some of that extra blue in there just for a little hint of extra darkness. And then what I am going to do is stop poking it around. So I'm not going to add any more colour. I'm going to wash my brush out. I'm going to take the excess off on my kitchen roll. I'm going to suck up some of these excess drips. I'm happy with where they are, but I don't necessarily want the rag rolling to take anything away from them. So we'll pick up that excess water with our brush so that we haven't got a sort of dollop going on. And then we'll take the same bit of kitchen roll and we'll give it an encouraging rag roll in the background. What I'm hoping this will do is provide us with some interesting texture, and it does that very thing. Look at that. In actual fact, it's giving a really crisp texture. So I'm liking that. Excuse me. I'm going to soften these edges where the runs are. Let's just make sure we've got no puddles anywhere. I'm looking across it now to make sure that I haven't missed any part of it and that it can dry nice and evenly. Now, what you may notice there in my palette is that the colours have separated. So there's a brown pigment in there and there's a blue pigment too. So they've actually separated, and I can already see, even on a mixed media paper, that it's granulating and it's creating some rather beautiful texture. Let's show you that in the close-up camera before I dry it. Let's just get that in. Can you see that lovely, delicious texture going on? Little bit has occurred from the rag rolling that I've done in the background, but an awful lot of it down here is where that pigment is granulating. Isn't that a lovely, lovely thing? How exciting. Right, what I need to do is give this a quick blast with the heat gun just to kind of take the edge off it. If you're doing this in your own time, spend longer drying it. I just think that watching me dry paint is probably one of the dullest things ever. But I'm going to give it a bit of a quick blast just to take some of the dampness away from it. So I'm going to keep that heat moving over the surface, because if you, particularly with a heat gun, if you point it in one place, then there is a danger that you're going to blow a hole in it. Pam is liking the rag rolling, and Julie is apparently going to hunt me down because I've obviously used something that she likes the look of. Now, one of the disadvantages to me, and this is only me, in this paper being in a block, is that you may know from past demonstrations that I quite like to dry it from the back, which I'm obviously not able to do, but that doesn't mean in future I can't take sheets out of the pad and use them that way. Lots of people agreeing with you, Julie, in a whole sorry not sorry kind of way. Right, I'm just going to turn up the heat just for a second. And I can see actually that the paper is flattening out. Let's get it back down to a low heat again. Heather is saying that she's struggling to remember that it's 9 and not 10. Yes, Heather, I do apologise. It's only because during Dorset Art Weeks, I'm opening the studio door at 10. And funnily enough, the general public don't always want to be involved in a live broadcast. It's funny that, isn't it? Now, actually, this paper is flattening out rather beautifully, so I needn't worry about drying it from the back. It's kind of gone back flat again and it's all ready to go. So let's give our Chinese lantern a bit of colour. So for this, I'm turning to the Tundra Orange in the Schminker tubes. Let's get some of that squeezed out. Now, you know me, ordinarily, I don't use my colour this way. I usually squeeze it out into pans. But I thought you would want to see the tubes in particular and how how the colour looks out when you squeeze it out of the tube. Right, what do I need? I need my security blanket. I need my size 10 brush. Now, this colour isn't necessarily the colour that I want my Chinese lanterns to be. I just thought that it was quite interesting from the point of view of this beautiful lantern here. Is obviously a slightly duller orange where this has dried out, but with these kind of hints of the brighter one over the top. So I thought I'd start with this one and then we'll go on to other things. Barbara is asking that she's saying that she missed the start and what paper is it? This is the Hahnemuller bamboo paper, Barbara. Yes, Mal, I am too. It's where all my wages go. Sucker for anything new is what Mal is saying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some little tiny touches of this colour. I want it for its granulating properties. I'm going to do a bit of blending out with it too. So my brush is going back in the water. I'm taking the excess water off of my brush onto my kitchen roll, and then I'm going back into that colour to smudge it and move it. And what it's giving me is this lovely muted tone underneath. Let's do a little bit more of that on this side, a little bit stronger there when I went back into the colour. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm using my brush more as a sketching tool than anything else. Ali WT is saying that it doesn't look orange. No, it is. I mean, they're called tundra for that exact reason, that they're sort of more earth-like. So it's a sort of browny orange is what I would say, more like a burnt orange. It is a little bit brighter in real life than it is on the computer screen, but you'll see why I want it to be a duller colour. Now, Schwetter, please, I apologise if I've mispronounced your name. This is the Hahnemuller bamboo paper. It is, let me lift that up, 265 grams, but actually it sort of works more like a 300 gram, it has to be said, and this is 24 by 32 centimetres. So I've got that colour in. I'm going to give that a quick dry too. You'll probably notice that I've left some white paper showing. I've absolutely done that on purpose so that I'm leaving this beautiful crisp white surface behind. And I'm going to give that a quick blast of heat just to take the edge off that. This is not a special heat gun, please don't think that it is. It is simply because it's quieter than a hairdryer. It means I can talk over the top of it. So let's give that a bit of a blast. That'll do. You'll dry yours. You'll be much more careful and much more successful. So we've done, we've got our bamboo paper. We've got our little bit of granulating watercolour. I'm loving the texture that is coming out of those. That's fantastic. Now, if I show you the Ali's Garden painting again, you will see that not only are those muted tones there, but there's also some bright tones in there too. And I am going to get to those, but the first thing I'm going to do before I get to those is I'm going to add a little bit of creative texture to this. Now, if you were watching a demonstration I did a few weeks ago for Search Press, you will know my love of bubble wrap, and I'm all for a recycling opportunity as well. So I use printmaking materials an awful lot. Bubble wrap is a real favourite printmaking technique of mine. Now this one, I ordered something and I can't remember what it was. This has gone in my packaging box. And I kept it because it's got slightly smaller bubbles than normal. Now, I don't want to miss the opportunity of still using it potentially for packing up a picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a cheeky corner out of it over here. I'm not going to tear it today. I've just got a pair of scissors to cut a cheeky little sample out of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to inject some layers into this by using it for printmaking. And I'm going to use both of the watercolours that I've already used. Where's my kitchen roll? See, it can't be far away from my kitchen roll. So I'm going to go into that Tundra Orange. I'm going to pick up relatively neat colour onto my brush, and I'm going to swipe it across those bubbles. Let's get that up into the camera so you can see it nice and clearly. They hit and miss over the surface. It's not watery. It's not a thick colour. It's sort of, how would I describe that? Possibly yogurt consistency. And then I'm going to take that over to my painting. I'm going to lay it down so that it's partly in the Chinese lantern and partly out of the Chinese lantern. And then when I pull that away, look at that. What a fabulous texture that is. Really instant and very exciting to do. Now, if there's part of it that you're thinking, oh, that's a bit too much, while it's still wet in watercolour, you can agitate it with a little bit of water and lift it out. So it's a very editable technique too. Yes, Julie, another opportunity to crack open that bubble wrap. Now I'm going to repeat that process again over here. I'm going to put some of it up into the background. In fact, let's get it disappearing into the white paper. So we'll pop that up there. Remove that. That's a slightly more watery version, quite like that going on. Want a bit of lost and found going in it as well, but what I'm trying to do is create lots of layers so that your picture gets some real depth. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing, one more pass of it, but this time I'm going to use that blue to swipe over the top, because I don't just want the main feature colour to be in there. I want some of the background creeping into the foreground too. So let's tap that on. I'm pressing it very lightly. I'm not being heavy-handed with it. And then when I remove it, you get that amazing texture. Really pleased with that. In fact, this is me faffing, and you're all very welcome to shout at me. I'm going to extend that patch down a little bit. There we go. So it's kind of falling down a bit further. That was a real compositional consideration. It was just looking a little bit square, so I've kind of brought that texture down a little bit more. And that needs another dry, so let's give that a blast. Going on over here. Again, you will take much more care and time over your version of this. I am simply rattling through it so that you get to see the techniques. So that looks dry enough to me. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start injecting some bright colour to it. It's okay as it is. It's certainly not a bad painting at all. You could carry on with it in more muted tones. And yes, Margaret, you're absolutely right that it does look more like a brown. It's sort of like a burnt colour, isn't it? Mal is saying that she saw a demo with bubble wrap spread with white chocolate and wrapped around a cake, removed when set, leaving an interested decorated cake border. Well, we all need some of that cake, don't we? That sounds far too interesting. Perhaps I should take some of my painting techniques into my baking as well. Right, let's get on to the bright colours. And I've got a selection of gouache here. Now, just in case you're not familiar with gouache, gouache is a medium in its own right. It used to be called body colour. It's something that's been around for far longer than you possibly appreciate. I really like gouache. I like it with my watercolours because it gives that injection of colour, and it also is much more opaque than watercolour. So you can go back in and you can just make some elements of it pop. Now I pulled out a selection of colours. I pulled out a Prussian blue because I thought I might need some of that. I don't think I'm going to need that, if I'm honest. But what I am definitely going to use is the flame orange and the pale gold. So what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze those out. Now, this is typical of me in as much as I am experimenting as I go, and I've just realised that I haven't popped any brusho in this yet. Now that doesn't mean that I couldn't wait till the end and put some brusho in. What I am just thinking about, my brain when I do these demonstrations is always kind of thinking 50 steps at a time. I'm just thinking that if I put my brusho in now, if for some reason it runs away with me, what I can then do is use the gouache to cover up any mistakes. So rather than do the gouache now, I'm going to leave that there. It'll all be fine. It doesn't matter. I'm actually going to go back a step and go to the brusho. Now, just in case you haven't come across brusho either, don't forget these links are all available in this broadcast, no matter whether you are watching it on catch up or live, to the SAA's pages so that you can go and have a look at these products. This is akin to a powdered ink. I particularly like it for its textural properties, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of it onto my paper and I'll see what effect I get. This is gamboge, so this is a sort of orangey, egg yolky kind of colour. I'm going to give it a shake because the particles do settle, and I'm going to use my trusty coffee stirrer to apply it. This has actually had gamboge on it before, but it wouldn't matter. I'm opening the lid away from my painting because I don't want it exploding everywhere. I don't know if you can see from your aspect, but my board is on a slope. I'm slightly worried that that pot is going to slide down and then all fall into my lap, but that's for me to clear up afterwards, isn't it? Lynn is saying, late to the party. Lynn, please don't apologise. You can watch this on catch up. It will be available both on the SAA's Facebook page and it will also be available on my blog too. Pam is asking a very interesting question. Can you just use watercolour if you haven't got gouache? Yes, absolutely. Also, Pam, if you've got white gouache, you could mix that in with your watercolours to make a more opaque version of it, if that's something that you fancy doing. So I've given it a good stir with the coffee stirrer, funnily enough. And over on here, I'm going to very lightly tap a few granules, and we'll use close-up camera today to show you how little you need, because I'm sure you're looking at that going, well, Ali, have you actually got any that has gone down onto your paper? Let's get close-up camera in so that you can just see. I don't even know if you can see on close-up camera. Those few little particles there just before my fingernail, and then down here you've got those few little sprinkles too. Why is it important for me to show you those? It's important for me to show you those because you'll see how much colour is actually down there when I use my spray bottle. Now this is looking a little bit grim, my spray bottle. It needs a bit of a clean, but I promise you it is just ordinary water in there, just kind of run-of-the-mill water. But what I am going to do is come away from my paper. So I am at quite a distance away. You want the water to rain down on the surface if you can. So let's give that a bit of a spritz, and you can just start to see some of those lovely textural elements coming through. Do you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more down. I am in the mood for a little bit of extra brusho today. Now my paper's wet, so when this does hit the surface, it's going to start running instantly, which is very exciting. And I've got a huge, great blob that's happened there. But you know what you can do with that? Let's grab that kitchen roll. I'm going to wash that out and lift it off. That will be okay. In fact, let's make it run down the page so it looks absolutely deliberate. I'm all for making serendipitous moments look deliberate. Let's get that running down the page. Okay, so we've got a nice little textural element there too. Let's get that close-up camera back in so that you can see what I'm talking about. So here we've got that little bit of brusho giving that kind of essence of colour going on in the background. We've got all sorts of things going on there, and it's starting to look nice and layered, which is what you're after. I'm going to give it another dry before we go on to the gouache part of it, and it'll give me a chance to see some of your comments coming in. So Trudy, good morning, lovely to have you here. Don't forget you can watch this back, it's not a problem at all. And Lynn is saying that she didn't know that you can mix gouache and watercolour together. Yes, it's something I do an awful lot. and you'll see why in just a second. Ali WT is saying that she spent ages last night getting a red wine stain out of my other half's new white shirt, only for him to say thank you, but what are these turquoise marks on the back? It was Brusho! No! Oh, I've done that before. I've probably told you this story an awful lot, but I've actually managed to tattoo my dog with Brusho. My lovely black and white dog was black, white and turquoise one day when he happened to walk underneath me as I was sprinkling Brusho, and then went outside in the rain. So he had a sort of turquoise skunk strip down the back of him, which wasn't great. Righty-ho. Oh, good. Pam is saying that she's got white gouache, and Rosemary is saying that she likes the running down the page. Linda, good morning. Oh, Linda's been to the dentist, blah, 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 blah. Linda, I hope what I am doing takes your mind off your dental troubles. So what we've got there, you could leave it like that. If I'm honest, you could just put a little bit of pen work back in, but I'm going to push it one stage further by using some of that flame orange gouache. Look at that colour. I mean, I am not an orange person. Orange is not ordinarily a colour that excites me. That is the lovely Sharon Hurst's signature colour, isn't it? But you can't not be excited about that. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use it for a few little highlights, just to give, if I get this back into shot, you can see you've got that sort of faded colour. Lisa is asking a question that I get asked an awful lot: how Lightfast is Brusho in years? Unfortunately, Lightfastness is not something that you can quantify exactly, simply because it depends on the environmental situation that your painting is hung in. My advice always is to treat Brusho exactly the same as you would treat watercolour. So don't hang it in direct sunlight unless you're using museum glass, which refracts the UV light coming in through the window. You could spray it with a UV varnish if you wanted to be absolutely certain. But do you know what? All through lockdown last year, I had a painting hung in the window of my studio, and I completely forgot about it, and it had loads of Brusho on it, and it was gamboge Brusho, it was turquoise Brusho, and it was another colour as well. I think it was grey Brusho, and I completely forgot about it, wasn't caring for it at all. And when we moved the studio around to get ready for Dorset Art Weeks, I looked at it and the Brusho had absolutely stayed put. Brusho has a little bit of a bad rap for not being Lightfast, but I promise you, if you treat it the same as watercolour, then it is absolutely fine. Lots of people saying that they like the orange with the blue. Mal is asking, should she invest in a set of Brusho or individual pots? I would go for individual pots, Mal, just because you can then pick colours that you think are going to be useful to you. And don't go for sensible colours. Don't go for red, yellow and blue and then mix them together. Go for colours that are exciting, like the turquoises and the violets and all of those kind of things. So hopefully you can see now that that gouache is kind of starting to pull the colour together a little bit more. Maybe put a little bit too much down there. I can start to, because it's that little bit more opaque than watercolour, I can use it to sculpt some of the elements too. And it wouldn't be me, would it, without a touch of metallic in there somewhere. So I've got a pale gold here too, which has a kind of orangey red kind of bias to it. And I thought it would be nice to get a little bit of that in to break up some of that orange here and there. It's a very similar colour actually to the Schminke Tundra, which makes it very interesting. So you're kind of sticking within the same colour palette. So you're not deviating wildly from it, but you've got that little metallic element going in. Now I've got one last little bit to do down here. I just want to get the point of that lantern in. I don't want to over describe it, don't want to over paint it. I just want to get a sense of that going in, and it's coming together. It's coming together okay. Yes, Anne is saying that she likes the Brusho which splits. So like the black and the brown and the turquoise. Yes, absolutely. Anne couldn't agree with you more. So let's show you that gouache that we've put in. And the shine there is partly to do with how wet it is, but it's also to do with the fact that there is a metallic element down there. So I'm hoping you can see, let's just tip the camera so you can see it slightly better, that kind of lovely fresh orange coming out of the gouache, but you can still see the bubble wrap, you can still see that Schminke Tundra orange underneath. It's giving it that lovely layered quality, which is something that I like to get into my work an awful lot. That sense of being able to see through something, past something, surrounded by something. And also these lost and found edges. You've got a bit of that orange in the background. You've got a bit of texture. And yes, Martina, the bamboo paper is coping fabulously so far, living up to its name of being able to handle mixed media. Lynn has just asked a question. Can you remind which gouache you recommend, please? You did tell me weeks ago, but a lot has happened since, and she's got a memory the size of a gnat. Lynn, never ever apologise for asking a question twice, because what you're doing is helping other people too. Now I have two different brands here. I have got Winsor & Newton, because I really like the Winsor & Newton's Prussian Blue. This is what you call a designer's gouache, so this is the slightly better quality version. That is my preference. That doesn't necessarily fit for you. But the two that I've been working today are the Daler Rowney Designer's Gouache. And I always gravitate to the Daler Rowney ones, partly from a sentimental point of view, because this was the paint that I taught myself to paint on. I used to do a lot of calligraphy and illustration, and it was Daler Rowney's Designer's Gouache that I used to use all those hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So that is why it is kind of my default setting, I have to say. Now Lisa's just saying something. Yellow brush show pushes other colours around. Some good effects can be created. Lisa, that's a fantastic share. Thank you very much. And Trudy is saying that it's getting a nice 3D effect. Thank you very much. I'm going to give this another dry. It's not quite dry enough. And then we're going to give it some final flourishes with a bit of Posca pen before we part company for the day. That'll do. Can't be sitting watching paint dry. Now, Posca pens, again, a real stalwart in my work. These are paint markers. The thing to remember about these is that they are water soluble when they are wet and waterproof when they are dry. So it means that I can use them to accentuate some of the more structural elements of this. I can take a wet brush to them and move them around, and when they dry, they're waterproof so that I can layer them up. So we've got this one. So this is the 3M version. This is the 0.9 to 1.3 size, and this is, funnily enough, just called Orange. Let's just make sure it's working. Yes, it is. And so what I can do is I can use a few judiciously placed pen strokes, take my brush back in to blend them out, and what that will do is give that Chinese lantern that bit of structure. They're fairly opaque as well, so you can cover up a multitude of sins with them. So using that smudged out there, let's do a little bit of work on those back edges too. We definitely need there to be a stalk. I could have gone for brown for this, of course. It doesn't have to be orange. I had all sorts of colours picked out ready to go, but I'm trying so hard not to overdo it. Let's make a few marks in that structure so that the Chinese lantern looks like it's attached to something, and we'll use a little bit of water to blend those marks out so that they don't look quite so stern. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with the same type of pen, but this one, funnily enough, Ali WT, is called Red Wine. Very apt for today's storytelling, isn't it? And what this is going to do, I'm hoping, is provide a little bit of shadow in between. So those last few touches. Now, I had white gouache out here just in case I needed to add highlight back in. I had a white Posca pen just in case I needed that. But actually, I really don't think I do. After these last few marks and one final little pass of something, I'm going to leave well alone. And the final little pass of something, of course, because it's me, is I'm going to give it a little bit of a spatter. I'm going to do that in the gouache. So I'm going to take a little bit of the orange, tap that over the top so that we've got some extra textural marks to add to the brusho and the bubble wrap that we've done. And I'm going to do a little bit of the gold because why wouldn't you? Pam is saying she's not seen Posca pens before. Oh, Pam, look out for those in my demonstrations because it is something that I use an awful lot. I love them. I think they're brilliant pens. One of the best pens I've ever come across. We've got a bit of that gold. And actually, it's going to need a little bit of blue spatter in there as well. Of course it is, because why wouldn't you want to do that? And we'll get that spatter going down the page. Now, in saying that I didn't need any white gouache, completely lied. We've just about got time before we have to part company today. I'm going to add a tiny white highlight in here. I quite like where I've left the paper behind here, but looking at it now, even with that spatter on, it needs a little flash of highlight just in the top. So I'm going to use that gouache back in, sort of a bit more like an oil paint now rather than a watercolour. Ah, my mum's in the room. Morning, mum. Getting that back in, and one more bit. Who's going to be the first to shout at me to stop faffing? Probably my mother. Right, leave well alone, Ali, and let's call that a day, shall we? Good morning, Kathy. So that is pretty much it all done. Don't disappear on me yet. I've got some bits of information to pass to you, and don't disappear yet because I want to show you it in close-up. So let's get that close-up camera in and over the top. It's a little bit duller in the close-up camera, my apologies for that, but it's so that you can see it in close-up. There you can see those Posca pen lines, got that little bit of white gouache and the bubble wrap all coming in there with that little bit of spatter and the run marks going down the bottom. So lots of people saying that they've enjoyed this morning. Thank you very much for tuning in. It is always a pleasure to demonstrate for the SAA. Let's take you back so that I can speak to you directly. And look, the sunlight is pouring into the studio, which means that it is nearly time to throw open the doors to the general public. And we've had lots of visitors so far, and it's been an absolute joy to see you all face to face. But I very much hope that you have been following along what it is that I've been doing online. Don't forget those blog posts are going out daily. You can catch them on the SAA's community page under news and articles, or you can catch them on my website, www.alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk. Go to Ali's blog in the menu, and now let me remember, tomorrow, I can't remember what order they come in because I filmed some of them out of order, little insight there. Definitely talking about my 405 Lexington Avenue painting, my big Chrysler building painting that is a bit of the showcase piece here. I'm definitely going to be talking about my love of dandelions and why I paint them so often. And then I'm going to tell you the story of Troy for the painting Last of the Summer Sun. And there's a whole backstory to go with that. If you own a dog, you will absolutely understand the whole backstory that goes with it. And so I hope that you find that interesting. I need to say a huge thank you to you, to everybody for tuning in, no matter whether you're watching live or on catch up. Thank you very much for your support. I need to also say a huge thank you to the SAA team, particularly Tara and Sam and Laura and the whole rest of the gang, because they have allowed me to take over the social media and have trusted me with these broadcasts. So I want to thank them for that too. I will be back at 9 o'clock next week with another Technique Tuesday. We've got lots of them coming up for you. So until then, I do hope you enjoyed the demonstration today. Continue to look after yourselves, won't you? And if you ever have any questions, you only have to ask. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.